Welcome to WWP Clips. This is the official Clips channel for We Want Picks. We will be uploading our individual fight breakdown videos here, so make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our content. And as always, go to wewantpicks.com/bets, sign up with any one of our 5 betting partners, make a deposit, and we send you $50 as a thank you. Next up, at UFC Long Island, we have the main event of the evening. We have Brian Ortega taking on Yair Rodriguez. And Brian Ortega is 15-2 overall, 3-2 in his last 5, and he's coming off that failed title attempt to Alexander Volkanovski. Yair Rodriguez is 13-3 overall, 2-2-1 in his last 5, coming off that close loss to Max Holloway. Brian Ortega is a phenomenal grappler. He doesn't have very good wrestling. It's a low 24% accuracy. Don't get me started and ranting on how absurd it is that you're that good on the ground and you have no way to get it there. That annoys me more than any skill set gap in MMA. But anyway, if Brian Ortega is able to tie you up, able to get you to the ground, you're definitely going to be in some trouble. He has solid offensive striking, but his defense needs a little bit of work. He's hit with almost 7 significant strikes per minute, which is a very high number. He's hot and cold in his fights, which makes breaking him down kind of hard, right? You don't know what you're going to get. He looked like a lion against Frankie Edgar, a sheep against Max. A lion against Korean Zombie, and then a sheep against Volkanovski. You just don't know what Brian Ortega you're going to get, but you do know that no matter what, he will be very dangerous on the ground. Yair Rodriguez was a surging up-and-comer. He came into the UFC, he made a wild splash, he put together a really nice win streak, and then he lost to Frankie Edgar. He bounced back with a great win over Korean Zombie, and then Jeremy Stevens. And then, it just sort of died, right? He took 2 years off after that to deal with a whole bunch of stuff. And then he came back and fought Max. He's a fun, athletic guy who's going to spin kick his way to KO and entertain you the entire time he's in the cage. We saw the statistic last week when they were hyping this fight. It said something like Yair Rodriguez has the most Fight of the Night awards since 2014 or something like that. And he's tough to deal with, though, because his striking is so unpredictable. And you just don't know what you're going to get. And even if it does open him up for takedowns, he's solid enough on the ground that he can throw up a submission or at least create scrambles and then stand back up. Both of these guys are coming off main event losses, but I think they looked very different in those fights. Yair Rodriguez, I thought he looked incredible against Max. I get it, he lost and it was a decision, a clear one, but I thought he looked incredible. He was dynamic. He was landing well. And if he wasn't taken down, he may have won that fight. Brian Ortega didn't look very good in his loss against Alexander. He did drop him. He did almost pull off that submission. So, on paper, you see, wow, he dropped him. Oh, yeah, he almost had that mounted guillotine. But that was it. That was literally the only success he had in a 25-minute fight. He was outclassed almost the entire time. And I think I like Yair here. I totally understand that if this hits the ground, there's going to be a large skill gap. But I think there's an even larger skill gap while they're on their feet. Styles make fights, and I think that the dynamic striking of Yair is going to be a problem for Ortega. Volkanovski and Max were both able to dominate the striking because they don't sit still. They don't plant. They don't give Brian any time to try to slow it down and grapple. And I think Yair's exactly the same. Just constant movement, lots of power. And this time out, he's not going to have 2 years of ring rust to shake off like he did against Max. So I like Yair to win this fight. And if you want to say, well, hey, Max Holloway took Yair Rodriguez down 3 times, Brian's going to be able to take him down, and that's going to be a problem. If that's true, that's a true statement, and you have a very valid point there. But I think Yair was taken down the way he was because he was not expecting it. Who was expecting Max Holloway to shoot more takedowns than he has ever shot in his entire life? Nobody was. Not even Yair Rodriguez. But coming into this fight, he absolutely is expecting Brian Ortega to take some shots and try to get it to the ground. So I like Yair to win this fight, and I do have a moneyline bet on him to win. I was just really impressed against Max, but maybe that's the trap of Max, right? The dude gets hit so much, he can make anybody look good, even if he wins. What do you think, Jakey boy?
There's one thing that I want to mention off the rip, and I think that's Brian Ortega's striking. I think is pretty underrated as a whole. I know that he does get hit, he takes damage, but he has some pretty slick boxing, slips stuff well, throws counters well, and has a pretty good jab as well. There's two question marks for this fight, and everything resides with Brian Ortega, I think. I think Yair is who he is. He's a good, powerful striker. The question marks for Brian Ortega is first of all, how does he bounce back from that second title loss defeat? Because it's hard sometimes to re-motivate yourself after one, right? Maybe after one, you get that taste and you really taste and you push yourself to get that second one. You get the second opportunity, and the way that he lost that, where he was so close, he had his special mounted guillotine, and then after that, he puts him in a triangle, has the full triangle. He slips out, and then after that, he puts him in a darce. It's like the opportunities were there for him to win the fight, and it slips through his fingers. And sometimes for people that can motivate you more, and sometimes that can absolutely break you as a fighter. Like, I was so close. I was so close, not only once but twice. I was there. And how does he respond to that? I know typically after losses he's bounced back and looked great, but that's such a tough loss, and that he's taken so much damage too in those losses as well, that it'll be interesting to see how he bounces back mentally through his training camp. The second question mark for Ortega is, has he implemented wrestling? You mentioned he's so good on the ground, but he cannot get fights to the ground. His relationship with Tracy Cortez. Tracy Cortez is known for her wrestling. She showed off how good her wrestling is against Melissa Gatto in her last fight, controlling wrestling. With those two, maybe the camp has been really wrestling focused. He comes out and is able to get those takedowns. And maybe if he comes out and is able to get those takedowns, he should absolutely dominate this fight. If he can get those takedowns, get the back, control the fight. So if he comes out and is able to get the takedowns and win this fight, I'm not going to be surprised at all, because he has that advantage that you mentioned on the ground. But Yair Rodriguez, the striking that he possesses and the power that he possesses, some of those strikes that he landed on Max Holloway. I sent you a clip the other day, or yesterday or today, whenever it was, of a combination he landed against Max Holloway. It was a head kick with a straight, just 1-2 snap Max Holloway's head back. Brian Ortega, as tough as he is not going to be able to eat the shots that Max Holloway ate in that matchup. There's just the damage that he's taken up to this point. He is not going to be able to eat the shots and the power from Yair Rodriguez. So, is Brian going to be able to implement the wrestling? Up to this point, he has shown that he has not been able to. So I cannot put money in my pick in something that Brian Ortega has not shown up to this point. Can he still hang with Yair in the boxing? Maybe, for a few rounds, but I just think the power advantage for Yair with the striking is just going to be way too much for Brian Ortega. So I'm a big Brian Ortega fan. I love Brian Ortega. I wouldn't even try to mess with I love Tracy Cortez, but, I think they're perfect together. Brian, you got a great girl. I'm not going to step in between that relationship, but I just think in the striking he's going to be overwhelmed, and I just haven't seen his ability to get the fight to the ground without something weird happening. The reason the fight got to the ground, I think, as you mentioned, was Ortega. It was more, Volkanovski. It was more of a slip than anything, and he took advantage of the opportunity. He's very opportunistic with his jiu-jitsu, but without the pure wrestling and be able to shoot takedowns, get the fight to the ground, Yair, I think, is going to be way too much on the feet. So I was surprised that he honestly was the underdog in this matchup. I'll probably put some money line bet on him as well, and I just think the power is going to be way too much for Brian, but we'll see what happens. If Brian, gets a submission win, I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I'm surprised he did that. Of course he's well.
No, I completely agree. If Brian learns how to wrestle, all of a sudden he's crazy dangerous. And it's funny, the comment section's wild. You guys are definitely split. One comment here from Jester: Ortega has never been finished. 2 losses by former and current champions. Y'all nuts. Who the hell are Volkanovski and Holloway finishing? They're not finishers. They're not finishers. Yeah, obviously everybody has a finisher too. They're not finishers. It's not shocking that they couldn't finish Brian Ortega.
And I absolutely hate when people say, "Oh, he has." Nobody is ever finished until they're finished, right? I mean, that's literally how it goes. You're never finished, and then all of a sudden you get finished. So just because you've never been finished doesn't mean you can't get finished. You just haven't been yet. I mean, look at Tony Ferguson. Look at, all those people. I mean, you probably get finished. It just happens.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Brian Ortega, by far the more dangerous fighter on the ground. Yair Rodriguez, by far the more dangerous fighter on their feet. And as very simply, if Brian Ortega can get it to the down, he probably wins. Can he get it to the ground? Well, he's proven that he can't. And that's literally how I got to my pick. That's just literally how I did it. So, frankly, if he has worked on his wrestling and he plugged those gaps, he's a very dangerous guy. Because as you said, his striking has improved. His striking's solid, but it's nowhere near as good as Rodriguez's. And I have to assume Yair Rodriguez is pretty solid on the ground too. It's not like he's getting submitted left and right. Like if he's not, a pure boxer. He's not Floyd Mayweather. You take him to the ground, he's screwed, right? So anyway, I'm actually very surprised
pretty
that you and I are. Okay. I'm very surprised you and I are on the same side here. Genuinely surprised. Yair Rodriguez, 77.
I'm a huge Ortega guy. I just.
You're not huge. You're 5'6". $7,700. Yair Rodriguez will be in my DraftKings lineup. My favorite comment this week is someone's like, "Oh, Jacob's gonna hold that 11-0 over Angelo's head." I was just like,
well, the best part is once we get big and famous and people start seeing me in public, they're going to be like, holy shit, you're a lot bigger than I thought, which is going to feel great for me. Because you literally are like putting the level at like, they're going to be like, oh, wow. And they're all going to be like looking up at me, can I get your autograph?
Yeah, because I am making you sound like a tiny, like you're not, we are very different sizes.
Taller,
but
I'm taller than the average person for sure. When I walk in a crowd of people, I'm taller than most people.
In what country? Not in America. Not in the South.
Every time I walk out here. Every time I walk by this middle school, I see over all of them.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're quickly escorted out of there by the police.
Yeah, anytime I'm hanging, anytime I'm hanging around the middle school playground, I could see all.
Anyway, $7,700 in DraftKings. I do think I like Yair quite a bit. The Monkey Knife Fight strike line, I do think this goes, right? I don't think it may not go the full distance, but I do think this fight will go quite a bit. I think it'll be exciting. There'll be some back and forth. Ortega might end up diving at legs, but Ortega has shown that he is willing to exchange. He doesn't get desperate with his shots. They're just not very good when he attempts them, but he will exchange. So I'm going to take a look at how many strikes Ortega landed against Volkanovski. And if it's over 100, this is an easy more for me. If it's not, then maybe a less more. What do you think of the Monkey Knife Fight strike line?
I just don't see Brian Ortega getting hit in the face 123 times. And I mean, Yair throws heat, guys. You watch some of those combinations he threw against Max. I'm convinced Max doesn't even have a brain in his head. Because he just snapped. Just wow. There's a reason Max was wrestling, guys.
Wasn't Ortega the one that Max was like hitting in the face, and then he grabbed Ortega's hands and held it up to show him how to block a punch?
Yeah, the most disrespectful shit I've ever seen. What in like the fourth round? I guess it didn't go the fifth round. The fourth round, he literally stops Ortega, and Ortega literally stops throwing punches. And Max is like, "When I throw this, put your hand here. When I throw this," and then Ortega's like, "All right, get the fuck off me! Like, what are you doing?" But they literally stopped fighting, and Max is giving him a boxing lesson in the middle. It was literally the most disrespectful shit I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, after Jester talking about nobody stops Brian Ortega. What a buffoon, Jester. Come on, man. Get your act together. This is unbelievable. Guys,
does not go the distance. It's minus 150, by the way.
So they do think there's a stoppage here, which frankly makes sense, right? It's either standing or on the ground. Somebody's going to get stopped. You guys want 50 free bucks? Go to wewantpicks.com/bets. Sign up with any one of our 5 betting partners, and we will send you 50 bucks as a thank you. You want to test out Monkey Knife Fight? WeWantPicks.com/MKF. It's daily fantasy. It's easy, fun, legal. WeWantPicks.com/MKF. They will instantly match your deposit. Any parting words for the people before I hang up and put on some chapstick because I am dry.
Everyone watching right now. How many people are watching right now? We got almost 200, over 200 people in here. Like the fucking stream, you assholes. That's all I got. And subscribe.
Thanks.
Subscribe if you're new.
There goes the monetization on this video. Thank you for that. Guys, appreciate you. Thanks for hanging out. And we'll see you later this week for all of the other things. See ya.